Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to our second conference talk about food waste. I am Lucia and I will be a host for today. Let me introduce you to the Green Hospitality if you are joining us for the first time. Green Hospitality is a sustainability program of soap cycling, which is H.R.E.E.N in Hong Kong, focusing on collection of soap from hotels and then repurposing them, recycling them, and distributing this recycled soap through the charity partners to those who need it. So Green Hospitality is a program under soap cycling, and the aim of the program is to spread awareness about more sustainable practices in the hospitality industry. But beyond that, we also do engagement with stakeholders. We do some research. We share this research and knowledge with the larger audiences, but we also create partnerships and projects and therefore foster solutions in the hospitality sector, mainly here in Hong Kong. The program is supported by the Sustainable Development Fund of Hong Kong and is part of other initiatives. And this event specifically is leading to our conference on the 24th of September, where we're going to welcome around 30 speakers from the hospitality industry across airlines, hotels, civil society, F&B, and others. So those of you who are not yet registered, please keep an eye on our social media channels and other communication channels or to sign up soon. We are shifting the conference to online, so some of you have registered for our live event, but those of you who have not yet registered and would like to participate online, keep an eye on the communication we're going to push out in the coming days for how to sign up and join the conference. All right, I think we have gotten most of you connected. We have more than 100 registrations for today. And over 50 of you are now with us. We are recording the session. I'm going to share it later on as well. And I would like to now share my video so that you can see me and introduce you the speaker for today. So it's my pleasure to welcome Benjamin Lephilibert. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, so you can feel free to correct it later. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Hello, Benjamin. Thank you for spending this hour with us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
So let me introduce you our speaker and a specialist in food waste. So Benjamin is a self-made food waste solution designer. And he started his career in sustainability in 2008 with Accor as a Green Globe certification manager for 45 Asian Novotel. After consulting for the UN, he founded LightBlue Environmental Consulting in 2012 with a vision to reconcile business excellence and sustainability. LightBlue is a regional awareness raising, auditing, capacity building, consulting, and technology firm working on food waste prevention across Asia and Europe with hotel groups like Marriott, Accor, IHG, restaurants, Kofoko Denmark, as well as international organizations like Michelin Guide Thailand, WWF, and government agencies. Benjamin is also an international speaker, spoke at more than 45 conferences in 11 countries. He is a judge for awards on sustainability, guest lecturer in culinary schools and business schools, and a certified trainer for the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. With a consortium of academics and experts, he co-developed the Pledge on Food Waste, a third-party certification and benchmarking system, enabling government agencies, restaurant groups, and hotel groups to adopt a unified and holistic approach to cut on food waste using a practical methodology, a precise performance benchmarking system, improving the bottom line, and with the full process being 100% online. Benjamin and LightBlue's expertise have been referenced in more than 40 newspapers and academic publications worldwide, including the Financial Times, El Mundo, Bangkok Post. So there's a fantastic background that you have there and definitely an expertise that you have gathered over the time. And we are really excited for you to share with us some of that knowledge. And we set it for today. We have a little bit different setup as we do for the other times. And you have prepared some slides and some presentation on the topic of food waste. So the floor is yours, Benjamin. Please.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lucia. I was watching, with a bit of concern, the number of participants. I was like, wow, the intro is way too long. People are going to drop off already. No, thank you very much for that kind introduction. I will share my screen so I can rebound a bit on what you said, because I think it's why we here and why we do what we do. As you mentioned, when I started my career in hotel sustainability, I was implementing this certification program called Green Globe, which is called EarthCheck now. 45 hotel properties. I wasn't really convinced at the time. I was in a truly passionate sustainability young person. I was more curious, and after implementing this, as I was working with the UN, we're still looking at the big picture of sustainability in the hospitality sector: energy, water, waste, chemical, local communities, etc. Until that day where I was like, hold on, so waste for you, food waste is like waste, like disposable napkins or straws. And I started to be first interested, intrigued, and then puzzled, because there was nothing at the time. 2013, no benchmark, no articles in the newspaper, no awareness, not even like this, curiosity from the professional that, well, there may be something interesting to look at. And when I was asking those questions, very simple question from someone not from the operation, as I was, external point of view, I was asking them, how many kilos are ending up in that bin on a daily basis? Where is it coming from? What is it? And how much does it cost you? And those simple questions, I always got this blank look back, as in, why would you care? And I'm like, well, that's just horrendous to see like dozens and dozens of kilos only in this bin, knowing that you have several outlets, you have multiple locations where food is either being received, stored, prepared, or served. And that started to get me thinking, okay, wow, there is something here. So I convinced one hotel to let me run a program that I designed based on simple tools that I found online and a methodology. And then I got started, and I got started specifically on the topic of food waste. And since 2013, I would say it became our core expertise, and we keep on learning every day, because it's a vast topic that requires a lot of practice, and that is I would say it's a complex issue. So first, I would like to share a bit about like our vision. You shared it already. So really to reconcile business excellence with sustainability. Run roughly 45 projects, as you already mentioned, and we estimate that we saved around 1 million kilos since we started, and it's very difficult to be able to track. So we're being conservative, but it's roughly around this area. This is another view of the type of customers that we work with. It was shared as well earlier. What is interesting is now we are doing a shift, and we are working more and more, initially much more with hotels and restaurants, and now much more with government agencies, with universities, as we just completed with Republic Polytechnic, for instance, in Singapore, with international organizations like G.R.E.E.N on multiple countries. It's an exciting time. Before I dive into the topic, I would like to get you to adopt a certain perspective, because the topic of food waste is still widely misunderstood. And if we go back to, I would say, the big picture of sustainability, and that's where we are here today. Initially, we started with the Millennium Development Goals, for those that were old enough to remember those. What is interesting is that there was only 8 of them, out of which only one, the number 7, was specifically focusing on environmental sustainability, as they were calling it. Moving fast forward to 2015, US SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and then suddenly we have double the number of goals, and with much more specific aspect related to what you could call like environmental sustainability, but one fundamental aspect, which is as well the reason why we decided those 7 years ago to focus on the topic of food waste. The fact that actually food waste is the only topic that really connects all of those 17 SDGs. from the biosphere, the ecosystem, to the society, to the economy. And this is a very nice representation by the Stockholm Resilience Institute in Sweden. But it's a nice illustration to say that even if you step back for a second and you think, well, nobody can live without food. And food has made or break empires, has triggered wars, has shaped geopolitics. And we still now look at food as something granted that is in our plate. And we try to get our partners, those that join our workshops, to shift their perspective as well. Try to think about all the resources that was needed to get that apple in front of you. From the moment you sow the seed, all the way, and each steps that it had to go through, and all the resources that were embedded in that apple, so it can become an apple in front of you in an urban context. And it's phenomenal when you think about the accumulated amount of resources that are lost through food waste. So to share a couple of figures with you, many of them are, I would say, well known, such as 1/3 of all the food that we produce is wasted. There's still 850 million people that are undernourished. There are 2 billion people that are overweight or obese. There are serious discrepancies between amount of food that is lost depending on where it is on the food chain, on the supply chain, from the harvest level to distribution, manufacturing, retail, and huge differences in terms of amount that are lost at different levels. Anyway, down the line, we are all dependent on food, and we are not, I would say, respecting food enough. And this is one of the messages I would like to share with you. Now, if we zoom specifically in the context of hospitality, I shared how we ended up focusing specifically on this topic. And one of the reasons was, I was surprised and intrigued that nobody was really talking about it. It was not on topic. And B, knowing that we are on a B2B sort of relationship with our customers, and that was the reality for us until now. You need to show that, okay, sustainability basically in general 7 years ago was not sexy enough, so that let's say hotels would pay you as a consultant to help them on this topic. Things have changed, but at the time we were too early, and we identify food waste as a fantastic way to show that there is some genuine financial benefit in addressing food waste. And I really would like to insist on this first statement, because this is a learning experience from the past 7 years on why such a slow pickup, in particular in the hospitality sector. So if we look at if you ask the question to chef, when you start a project and you ask a chef of any hotel, how many kilos do you think you're wasting? Most of the time, they won't have a proper, comprehensive food waste monitoring system that would cover all of the operation. So they may come up with some ideas, which is an estimation. What is funny is when we ask that question, then we run the project behind. We see that they tend to underestimate the volume of food wasted by a factor of 3 to 8. So they believe that it's 3 to 8 times smaller than what is really happening. That's what we call the perception gap. Second issue is this common belief, which is wrong, that hotels that run buffet is responsible for most of the food waste, and I control my buffet well. I probably don't waste much food. Unfortunately, food waste generated at the buffet level only represent 10 to 15% of all food waste generated by hotels. If we look at each steps from spoilage, preparation, buffet and plate perspective, there is a lot, the vast majority of food waste is happening somewhere else than on the buffet. And that's an important key learning point. The last point is this common belief by the hotel industry that food waste is a marginal cost. It's something that is not substantial, that is not worth paying attention or investing in, because they believe that, well, it's already taken care of. But actually the cost is hidden in the standard financial KPIs that are used by the industry, mainly the food cost percentage, that is not truly reflective of the efficiency of the operation. If you sell high enough, you would have a low food cost percentage. Doesn't mean that you are doing great in terms of maximizing the use of food in your operation. And this striking figure, the fact that food waste, once a proper methodology is used to calculate the cost of food waste, it is systematically representing between 6 to 14% of the revenue of hotels and restaurants. So it's not something nice to have and a small adjustment. It's a major, very important chunk of that revenue that many people have been overlooking so far. So this is kind of the foundation. I would like to share this misunderstanding, which is fundamental, that the industry start to shift their perspective because they are bleeding cash, to put it simply. So what are some of the existing solutions? So I would like to just like share with you that we don't have the pretension that we got solutions for all the food waste problem in the hospitality sector. However, we have spent a considerable amount of time in digging and fine-tuning, testing, readjusting, and finding what seems to be working well. So we have 3 sets of different solutions. One which is on the tech, one which is on all the capacity building and education and training, and another which is around certification. So I will go through them very quickly. Starting with the tech, 30-second video that explains how is the tech useful in collecting essential data to be able to address the issue in operations.
We spent the last 7 years working on the issue with one goal in mind: how to prevent food waste. It is a complex issue that requires elaborated solutions, and our technology just makes it easier. Food waste occurs at multiple generating points, from receiving food all the way to the plate. Collecting the right data helps answering the key questions. Through the use of one generic tablet, identify your shift, qualify your waste, enter your quantity. Bam, you're done. Track large scope of your operation, not only in one location, but in multiple locations. Access to performance dashboard on any device, cloud-based, and to in-depth data analytics on demand. Receive a weekly report right at your inbox. Ready to cut unnecessary costs? Get in touch.
That's just another view I wanted to share with you, because the importance of the technology, let me try to skip that slide. The importance of the technology is, in that case, I don't think that the technology, well, we will touch on it a bit later, but is the answer. However, it is part of the answer. And especially when you start looking at the quantity of information that you can collect from your operation in terms of how much was wasted. If you have multiple recording points with multiple shifts using multiple categories of food waste and multiple type of food waste, then you come up with a huge matrix of figures and numbers that the machine can process much easier than us. So this is what we've been designing with a tablet that is used as a data entry point, and the data are being processed online on the software to help guide our partners in answering those questions and adjust, I would say, their operation. And we're very happy to share that yesterday night we learned that our solution received the label Solar Impulse Efficient Solution from the the Solar Impulse program in Switzerland. This solar powered flight around the globe. The second set of solution that was introduced earlier by Lucia is the Pledge on Food Waste certification. So this is the first third-party verified certification and benchmarking system that is designed for hotels, outlets, restaurants, and canteen to have the right measures in place to control food waste. It is third-party verified, and one of the key aspects of this specific solution is the fact that embedded in the way the certification has been designed are 2 components. One of them, so there are 7 pillars. The beginning one, the first one are pretty classic, I would say, from process documentation, training of employees, food waste monitoring system. Then you have, I would say, the best practice at each of those critical points that we're talking about, from receiving the food to dispatching in the different areas to portioning, forecasting, service, etc. Those are the two other pillars. But there are two pillars that are especially interesting in that case. First one is customer engagement. And this is new. A lot of, especially in the high-end sector segment, where five-star hotel must not talk about food waste because this is disgusting and this is so not luxurious. And luckily things are evolving because consumers are expecting differently now than they were 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. So there are a whole set of commitment around customer engagement. And one of the last part, which I think is extremely interesting, is the fact that once all the preventive measures has been put in place by the, let's say, the restaurant, so they do so in a very selfish way because they want to cut on costs, they want to be more efficient and pay less. But if they want to have additional points in order to reach those different levels that you can see on the right-hand side, from bronze to silver to gold to all-star, then they will have to look around and see who are the other food waste solution providers. And those food waste solution providers can be food rescue organization, they can be app that provides a discount at the end of the shift. That could be pig farms, that could be biodigesting companies. All those guys have a role to play, and basically, if they are working with those companies, then they earn more points and they can reach higher level. So to show how far they want to push and how much they want to basically be recognized as thought leaders. So those are an example of aggregator it is de facto an aggregator of food waste solutions, and that helps to structure this and nurture this ecosystem of providers wherever the pledge is implemented. So that's of a great interest as well for, I would say, local authorities to be able to foster that ecosystem while providing solutions to cut on costs for those that implement it. And I would like to share as well this news that came only a couple of days ago. The Athene Hotel, and more specifically Raintree, their restaurant, is the first restaurant to achieve 100%, so the all-star level out of all, and really setting a landmark in getting Marriott. So this is the Athene Hotel, part of the Marriott network, in achieving, I would say, ambitious goals that are embedded both with the in the context of SDGs and as well like their corporate strategy, Serve 360. So I think this is a precedent, and hopefully more will be inspired by this sort of example. I will skip the video from JW. And
it's a paradigm.
Sorry, and I will, and then I will finish with this. Capacity building. This happened mainly, well, we have been always building capacity of our new partners. Every time we were starting a new project, we would spend a lot of time, because we believe that the why is food waste an issue is fundamental and must always be the first step if we want to see people implementing change. But thanks to COVID, because of COVID, we started to structure all of our knowledge accumulated over the past 7 years, and we package it in specific set of workshops that we deliver online now, because it's a lot of challenge. Some workshops like those one are standalone modules that are specifically for hospitality lecturers, for students, for consultants, with a very specific angle around the topic of food waste. So let's say food waste monitoring system, or building an effective food waste lover committee, or engaging diners in food waste prevention. Pieces of information wrapped in roughly like 3 hours sort of module. And we have another set of workshop that are more, I would say more comprehensive, but at the same time less specific to the hospitality sector. So we have quite a few participants from government agencies, international organizations, lecturers again, that are keen to acquire knowledge on the topic of food waste in a practical way. So we bring them on a journey from, I would say, the big picture of food waste, zooming in on the food supply chain, the inefficiency and circularity of the concept of circular economy applied to food. And then we look at food waste monitoring, what sort of information we collect, what do you do with those information, how does that translate on the financial side, and ultimately ending up with what are the existing solutions to reach zero food waste to landfills and innovation around that topic. I'll skip the video as well to keep...
Food waste represents 44% of all the waste we produce.
Sorry, I'll just skip. And to conclude, a couple of examples. Those are examples of case studies of hotels that we work with, from an Accor Hotel Pullman to Marriott Marquis or JW Marriott in Phuket, with a set of KPIs that we are always tracking. How do we impact the food cost percentage? How do we impact the cost per cover? How do we impact the total volume of food waste that we manage to reduce? How does that translate, of course, on the financial side, but as well in terms of carbon emission reduction over the implementation period? That's it. I've been a bit long. I'm sorry, Lucia.
It's okay. No worries. Thank you for sharing the really interesting journey and how you actually started off with it and the different challenges that the industry is actually facing. I'm sure that lots of people here on the call can relate. I see some of the different service providers and people who deal with food waste here in Hong Kong specifically. Now let's transition into the questions. And at the same time, I would like to encourage the audience to, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat. So you could just keep muted so that we don't disrupt the sound for everyone, but feel free to utilize our chat. We have Eliana here, my colleague, who is going to collect those questions so we can answer them as they come in. So if you have any sort of question for Benjamin around food waste, he's the expert to ask about those. Now, I have a couple of questions I have prepared, and you have partially answered some of those that we have sort of thought of. So like your journey into why did you decide working on this issue, etc. But there are still some that we have not answered, and I would like to have your opinion on.
Yeah, please.
So for instance, currently we're facing the pandemic, obviously, and that might mean that less people are dining out, and they're more likely to perhaps cook at home or maybe do takeouts, depending really on the location. In Hong Kong would be lots of takeouts probably, but in some locations might be way more preparing food at home. Now, what do you think, or have you observed any data since the pandemic started, through your work with different partners? Is there any trend in like reduction of amount of food waste because of this, do you think? Or would those, say, ingredients from the restaurant would be wasted because restaurants cannot adapt that quickly to this new shift, and therefore lots of their procurement still goes into waste just because it's not even effectively utilized due to like decreased demand from the customers? How do you think, or if you were to give an advice to an F&B, how they should plan, say, the procurement in these times? Or is there any sort of rule that you have observed and would help them be better and produce less food waste?
Well, no, it's an interesting question, and it's a tricky one, because, well, most of our partners just shut down literally from February or March, and they reopened only very recently. So what is happening is that normally we have our ongoing food waste monitoring system, which helps to keep an eye on the operation and kind of the level of efficiency. But when they shut down, they just shut down. So we turn blind. So for us, it's instead of just sharing, I would say, or throw up in the air some ideas. I would say I don't have enough depth to say if restaurants or hotels during COVID have been throwing more or less because of that lack of I would say visibility for us. However, of course, the volume of operation being either they shut or they have been like widely reduced. So indeed, they are dealing with much less customers and much less food. I'm sure there has been some sort of a buffer. I mean, a moment at the beginning, especially for the operation to adjust, realizing that okay, well, we need to adjust the volume that we purchase to the much lower volume that we're about to sell. I think where the main bottlenecks have been happening was higher up, so not specifically in the hospitality sector, but higher up the supply chain, as we saw like dramatic with disruption of an entire industry that is normally absorbing a great deal of this food that is produced, suddenly not buying anymore. Created gigantic amount of food that couldn't find any markets, and as the governments were so not used to have to keep up or patch and find solutions, it's all the rescue organizations that had to roll up their sleeves and get to work to try to move all this food from one location to the consumers, and of course the needy in particular. And this has been some very interesting work examples in the US and in Asia as well. What I read recently, and that's one of the study, because it's still very difficult to get access to detailed, reliable data on food waste. What I read recently is that there was a clear increase at the beginning in terms of food waste for household in the UK in particular. But there has been as well, since the COVID has lasted quite a bit of time, people were kind of confined in their own apartments, and then apparently a higher awareness about the importance of food and the importance of cherishing food or valuing food, and that hopefully on the long run will help to be just more, I would say, respectful, if I can put it this way.
Thank you so much for sharing. Now something more practical, maybe for the individuals on the call as well. So you are a trainer for the Global Sustainable Tourism Council. Do you have any tips for the individuals, how they can reduce the food waste, especially when it comes to traveling? Would there be something that you would not do because you're so aware, or how they could actually diminish the food waste that they produce? What is like your go-to rule? How can we make that shift happen?
Yeah, hit your kids if they don't finish their plate. No, there are many different. I have kids, and they're not watching, so it's all right. I can run this joke. No, yeah. Of course, there are plenty of rules. As there was one point that I didn't mention based on your previous question. I see a lot of hotels here now that they are reopening that decided, for instance, to either completely skip their buffet offering, even though they know that it's challenging, because it is something that is demanded by Asian customers in particular. They really like this, or shifting to more hybrid sort of solution. That's really so on the professional side, hybrid sort of buffet. Just come back from a hotel in Hua Hin where you have half of it a la carte and half of it which is buffet, but you don't help yourself. You just ask the waiters and they pick for you. So this I think will become more and more common. Now travelers is always a challenge, because if you ask me what are the key tips for a household, I would say a mom or dad to limit food waste is easier. Travelers, we are all we are all getting a sort of a different mindset when we travel. And it's interesting because even like if you look at sustainability in general, some would really embed it, but most of the people that may be more cautious at home, they recycle, they store their waste, they try to walk a bit more, but when they're on holidays, they like to indulge. They like to, there is this kind of disconnect, which I think, well, there's still some work to be done over there. But if we go back to the topic of food waste and your question, it's mainly about always, like I would call it, portioning. How hungry are you? How hungry are the people that are eating with you? Can you influence them? Going back to the example of the kids, usually I order less than what I would, because I know that I will finish my kids' plates, all my friends' plates, when I see that they start to order more than what they can handle. So Those are basic tips, I would say. But it's always more challenging when you're not at home and you can't plan ahead.
Right. Well, we got some questions from the audience, and I feel like what you mentioned is more being aware of your own choices, of your own self, even when you're traveling or you're on holiday, still keeping in touch with yourself and the environment around you. So we've got 2 questions already here, and I encourage others to also pose their questions in the chat. So TC is asking, hi Benjamin, thank you for the insights. Does LightBlue currently measure the carbon footprint of its food waste monitoring systems? Also, when you approach your F&B partners, do you encounter any resistance to adopting food waste reduction technology? What do you think are the reasons behind such resistance, if any?
Oh yeah. Resistance is the story of our activity. No, we have been struggling to be where we are. We took a lot of hit because, as I mentioned, we were too early. At the time when we were talking about, so 2013, recently we had a guest speaker in one of our workshops who is a lecturer on food waste from City University of London. And he was sharing the evolution of number of research papers published on the topic of food waste over the past 5 years. And it's really funny. It's an exponential curve. The first part of the question was related, do we calculate carbon emission related to food waste monitoring? Yes, however, it's not our forte. It's not, as I shared earlier, we tried very hard and we were repeatedly disappointed by the fact that there were hardly any professionals really interested in lowering their impact. So environmental, social impact on water, etc. It's only down the line, the bottom line and the cash that money talks. So we had to drastically shift the way we are presenting our solutions to adapt the language and the terminology used, and almost to carefully avoid the fact that, well, ultimately it is something good for the planet too, because it is still perceived, and that's directly linked to education and culinary schools and hotel schools that are still not embedding sustainability as a transversal kind of component that should be embedded in each and every single class that you go to, because it's not an external stuff that you can take out. And it's striking to see that still today, and still in major hotel groups that are officially displaying their ambition or policies when it comes to reducing carbon emission, waste, etc., water consumption, or food waste, there is a huge disconnect between the public message and the actual translation in practice, in means that are actually that they put in to reach those targets, in training people, in utilizing all their network to make it happen. So that's one of the challenge. To come back to the carbon emission, we do so, but we are not going into details because of the reason I just mentioned. So we do a simple conversion. 1 kilo of food waste equal 2.5 kilo of carbon emission. So if we reduce food waste by X compared to the starting point, we take as an indicator quantity of food waste divided by number of covers sold. So we have a ratio, let's say 500 grams per cover. And then we track the performance day by day or shift by shift compared to that starting point, that baseline. And whenever they are below, it translates into quantity of food that was not wasted. And this then is translated in carbon emission. So that's on this part. And yes, resistance big time, all the time, still now, still with dozens of case studies in various countries, hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings per year, sometimes more. The fact that food waste costs large hotel operation millions of dollars, some of them unique properties easily reach 1 million, 1.5, we've seen more than that. Yet, because the push from the top is not clear, and the push from the bottom, from the consumer side, is not strong enough, and that's where the pledge is coming to play as well, helping on both sides. But the push from the consumer is not strong enough to demand hotel operation to be more responsible and F&B operation to be less wasteful.
Thank you for sharing this. We've got also a question from Cora. What obstacles did you encounter when trying to convince? Oh well, we kind of covered that, because what kind of obstacles you
yeah, but I can elaborate a bit, because indeed I would say from the technical aspect it's interesting. What sort of resistance did we face? One of the first resistance was the fact that as we were going one by one, depending on who you are talking to in the organization, let's say the GM, Director of Finance, F&B Director, or the Executive Chef, you realize that you are on a new terrain, you're on a new field that the people you're talking to may not feel comfortable with, because you're coming up with a new topic, you are telling them that they have an issue that they didn't know they have. That's a serious problem, because even though you come with a solution, you're still creating that headache first. And that headache, many of them, instead of saying, oh, that's cool, we can then save X and then re-inject that savings into better quality product, they would be like, you know what, I'm here for 2 years, then I'm gone. Let's not, kind of stir this whole thing. So ignorance is bliss in many contexts. The natural, I would say, psychological stress that some may experience by actually putting a figure on something that always has been happening, but suddenly you measure it. So suddenly it exists, and suddenly you know that your entire hotel is generating a ton per day, or 1,200 kilos per day. And that they see it as a threat for their own position. Another important aspect is related to the, I would say, the fact that it is not compulsory in any hotel groups to have food waste monitoring systems. So they're like, well, hold on, what are my KPIs? This is not part of it, so it's okay, it's fine. We don't want it. And yes, I think this combination plus what I mentioned earlier, the fact that their current KPIs, the key performance indicators of hotel operation, restaurant operation, are not taking into account how much is lost. It's just a ratio of how much was spent in buying plus everything that was in storage, etc., divided by sales. So it's only cash in, cash out. We're not looking at volumes. We're not looking at covers in a detailed way. So we are trying to bring those two components, covers, volumes, plus cash, and start playing around, for instance, to track how many kilos of food is bought for each covers that is sold. Mm-hmm. And those are interesting questions, I think, that I still have a lot of room to explore.
Right, thank you so much. I've got another question from Tim. Thanks for the presentation, very informative. Have you come across businesses pushing back, not keen because it is extra efforts with weight input data, or is it the bottom line enough to offset this?
Yeah, that's what I was sharing. Is the bottom line is we had one issue, and it's funny because the issue was that when we were starting and we were at the beginning of our journey, the potential savings compared to what we were allowed to charge was so disconnected that we were doing proposal where the payback was 1 month, 1.2 months. We had to tweak the figures to cheat not on our cost but on the savings. So it looks more like, okay, that seems within boundaries, because systematically payback is below 4 months. There's a huge financial opportunity around food waste, which is still untapped and completely misunderstood. And for that reason, we're coming with projection where the teams were like, oh, no, well, those guys must be, that must be made up sort of figures, even though it kept on repeating itself. Again, because of lack of awareness, because of lack of case studies from different sources, and in-depth analysis of certain business units that can really show that, guys, if you waste 1 ton per day, how much do you think it's impacting your bottom line? I mean, put a price tag on it and then do the calculation. It's easy. So yeah, those were the main thing we've been facing.
And how about the recording of the data? I think what Tim means is, has there been any inconsistency in inputting the data? Have been the onboarding for the employees of a hotel or restaurant to make them used to using the app and actually recording all this complicated, problematic, or the adaptation was easy?
No, I mean, first, there is no perfect systems. There are loads of different ways to monitor food waste. Some are fully automated, which I don't believe in. Some are fully manual, which was where we were coming from, which has clearly some downside, including the labor. The upside is the fact that you are involving people manually to physically weigh whatever goes to the bin and to repeat that exercise and to jot down the quantities and the categories. They start to really get the information to sink in and to understand that there is a direct connection between the volumes that end up in the bin and their own behavior. And that connection, if you break it through fully automated system, this is gone. And if you are underestimating the importance of awareness and training of your team in hospitality, just because they are back of house instead of being front of house, that means that you haven't seen that there are huge rooms for I would say, more profit and more lean organizations. But no, the buy-in is, the buy-in to me is, to ensure a proper buy-in, there are several factors. I mentioned one, the fact that we always start with why. People are not machines. So if you get them to connect with the topic of food, and then the downside of it was the topic of food waste, you can see that they can relate to it as person, as a member of communities with the impact of food waste. And this is, I would say, the first link. But then many would say, and it's funny because most of the resistance would come usually from the mid-management level. The entry level staff, most of the time are very keen if you explain them why, if you make the procedure not too painful. And the third component that we play around is we try to design systems where we involve, for instance, human resources with the backup of general management and finance, where we say, okay, what about we set the right conditions so there is some incentive schemes. So we believe more into the carrot rather than the stick. So instead of putting CCTVs everywhere and punishing people because they're wasting too much, what about we play it, I would say, fair. We are being honest about where is our starting point. However, we have ambitious targets to cut it. And when we achieve those targets, what are the benefits for the staff? And I think this is fundamental. They can see that their efforts are paying off. And then there are different ways. Either it's small cash or sort of reward, which we don't necessarily encourage. The other option is much more on building the team, outing, celebration, or vouchers to use the facilities, stay with us as a guest. So a couple of champions that we set up, like food waste champions that are nominated, or eat like a guest. Some employees have spent years working in the hotel, never had a chance to eat at the restaurant. So there are lots of perks and easy ways to engage your team. And then you can see that you can win on several sides instead of just on the financial, pure bottom line sort of initiative.
Right. So it nicely blends the engagement of your staff and actually feeling them connected to the business more profoundly than just saving your costs anyways.
Yeah, fundamental,
We've got a question from Aurea. Do you see the upcoming waste charging scheme will make a change in behavior from hospitality sector? So I'm not sure you're aware, but here in Hong Kong, the plan was to implement a charging scheme by the government for discharging of waste. I'm not sure your experience across the other countries what it is, but would you think something like this, a policy would encourage or change the behavior in the hospitality?
I think it's touchy. And I hope there will be another question related to the latest decision by the Chinese government as well on the latest policy with order one less. But on this charging food waste, I think it's touchy and can backfire, even though it's a very, I would say, simple mechanism. I think it really depends on what segment you're in. Your fast food, cheap, all you can eat, yeah, makes sense, 100%. I mean, if you charge $10 to your customers, well, you'll have to find ways to control them. If you are in the 5-star luxury segment and that you charge $150 your customers for a Sunday brunch, you won't charge them for the extra food that they leave on the plate. So I would say, well, one size fits all is challenging. And again, I think that a mix of carrot and the stick is a good balance, but the carrot can go a long way in some situation, in not all of them. So I would say good in some context.
Right. So we've seen actually a few, in our talks with our stakeholders here locally, we've actually discussed this question as well. And we've actually seen that if there was a charging scheme, it could have some actually positive impact on like how certain businesses collaborate with, say, the civil society or the NGOs who, for instance, collect the food. Because like right now, the biggest issue here is the logistics. So like who takes care of the logistic cost is typically the question. And so if there is no imposed cost by the government for disposing of your waste, you as a business don't feel or have any sort of motivation to pay even marginal cost to a collector to dispose of your waste in a proper manner or repurpose it, unless you're really like business that values sustainability and you can afford it. So typically there is this problem of like the corporations or the businesses wouldn't want to pay for it, but then the NGOs who actually do this service to the society and trying to improve the environment also don't have the way to cover for their costs in a way, because nobody's willing to pay. And so we've seen actually that Mindship, and if there was a fee for disposing of your waste, they would be willing to pay rather that money to an NGO collector to do that. So we've seen like this actually could work in a way positively in some areas, because it would encourage them to essentially help the collectors to survive and to provide a service that they already do, because they now see the waste as you know, no value. Then they feel like, why would I pay for something that has no value whatsoever? So I think we're still like kind of walking into building the ecosystem where we understand this is a resource. It could be repurposed for something which creates a bigger value. It could be even used maybe for composting. Then later on, that compost could be used for vegetables that you can buy organically and locally produced. So we have to start really thinking in the systems and not only I dispose of this and then therefore I don't care what happens.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I misunderstood your initial question. I thought you were referring to the mechanism of charging customers in the restaurant or F&B sector if they don't finish your plate, you know, like where like the all-you-can-eat, you know, fast food sushi, and if you take too much, then you pay X per each 100 gram that is left. Sorry, and that was in that context my answer.
That's an interesting way that I think a lot of businesses might resource towards if they have to start suddenly paying for disposal of their trash, which they don't. So here is a government policy, like high-level policy, which will essentially charge everyone for disposing of their waste. So now it's not in place, it has been shelved. So we were just thinking, you know, is this positive, is this negative? Obviously, some of the it might cause some problems to some of the businesses. Also, there's not really effective way to collect or measure it. So we were wondering locally, like how it's going to be actually implemented, because it's not.
Yeah, Singapore is doing pretty well on that end. But yes, sorry. So to come back to that specific question, 100% with you. I think that's an essential element to get professionals to change their perspective, change the way they look at this, not as a natural byproduct of their operation, but as a sign of inefficiency. And if they start looking at it this way, and they start seeing how much they have to pay for their inefficiency, which can be coupled with the detailed analysis that I was referring to earlier. So if you have both of them, then they are losing on both ends. And they shouldn't be in business if they don't care about, like, you know, wasting cash here and there at the same time and not acting on it.
Yeah. So we've got last question that we're going to take because we are almost done for today. So we've got one more question, Tim. One more question, if it's okay. Any insights on SMEs versus corporates getting on board? Do you work with corporates and SMEs at the same time? Do you have any comparison to share?
So, well, yes, I guess, well, it's just this distinction. So to me that I'm trying to process. I would say we have been working most of our time. We've been working with hotels, but on a one-to-one basis. So meaning we were not coming from the corporate. Let's say when we work with Accor, or when we work with Hyatt, or with specific properties like JW Bangkok, we would go one-to-one. So we don't go through corporate. So then it's all the work that we can do in that context to change operation and collect all data and see what result we can achieve. We have had the chance as well to work with standalone hotels, maybe a different segment like 3-star MICE industry, sort of local Thai hotel. And there are of course differences. Same in Maldives, where we've had quite a lot of different projects, where you see the difference between those that truly walk the talk. So we had a chance, for instance, to work with various Soneva, for instance, while you have others that technically should be able to reach roughly the same level of performance, but huge disconnect for the same reason that I mentioned earlier. Because there is a policy, but there is nothing between the policy and the operation to kind of make it happen.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to have to wrap up for today already, but if you have any more questions to send, please do so. And one more really important thing, thank you so much, Benjamin, for sharing all of your knowledge with us. Hopefully we can see you on other occasions. And I would like to also encourage everybody else to sign up for other events that we have prepared, other speakers. We will have a conference on the 24th of this month. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, the program is funded by the Sustainable Development Fund here in Hong Kong. And as part of that, we would like to ask you to help us out to share a little bit of a feedback, so you can see it. We're just now sharing with you. It's a very short feedback. The link is in the chat here. Please, if you could spend just a minute now before we wrap up and close to fill it out, that will help us massively, as we need to reach certain level of feedback for our KPIs to be measured with the government, and continue bringing you these fantastic talks with great speakers. So if you could help us there, it's really just 2 minutes of your time to reward us for our work. That will really, really help. So please click on the link in the survey. Just really a couple of questions to pick from on how happy you were, and how we can improve on the topics and the talk that we have. Anything else while everybody's filling out the survey? Thank you so much. Do you have any questions, Benjamin, or anything you want to share?
Yeah, no, just one piece of information. If I can just share this. For those that are interested in in digging a bit more on the topic, if you think that it's interesting, we are running those workshops on a regular basis. The next time is on the 24th, and we go really in depth. So 3 times 3 hours. So if you're curious to dig further and acquire some knowledge more, I would say, in depth, and have more time to process and access all those information, I have. Okay, this video is starting alone, so it's a bit annoying. It's on our website. The workshop
we can definitely share it with the audience as well.
Oh,
we're going to collect a few of the links. So in a follow-up to this talk, we're going to share with everybody the relevant links, so they can go and check that. Thank you so much. So please, if you can fill out the survey, that really helps us out a lot. And for join us for the next talk. Thank you so much, Benjamin. Have a lovely evening in Bangkok.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lucia, for the invitation, and see you all hopefully soon.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Have a nice evening.